Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. I am back again, which happens and continues to happen on these podcasts, that you get to hear my voice, whether you like it or not. Hopefully you do like it. We've just, as we're recording this episode, this is one of the ones that we're recording shortly after we return from Doha, recording at the World Innovation Summit for Education, which was absolutely incredible to talk to the global community about the value and importance of higher education. And it's funny because my guest today will talk about that part of the world that he visited, and we'll ask him about that. But I do, of course, have a guest co-host today. She's somebody that you've heard before. Sometimes she laughs at my jokes, mostly not. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen. She's electric. Lisa Honaker, Managing Director of Sales for the Eastern U.S. at FedEx Office. Lisa, what's happening?
Nothing much, Joe. Thank you for having me on again. And I appreciate the electricity. I am going to tend to agree with that.
Well,
and
you
I
do have
think
a light bulb on your LinkedIn for growth. So, you are electric.
There you go. Thank you.
And your personality is electric. And when we talk on the phone, you're electric. And, you're just electric. That's good. This is the sound I picked for you for now on. What do you think about it?
I truly appreciate it. And you do lots of things for my ego. So thank you so much.
I'm going to keep hitting the button. Well, without further ado, I have to say that my guest today is a special guest. I could impress, I could totally bomb, and that will stick with me until the day I begin here. And what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about my guest today. He is a very interesting gentleman, and we'll be talking more about his background in particular. Here he comes, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. John Porter. He's president of Lindenwood University. John, what's happening?
Hey, Joe. A lot going on here. So great to be on with you folks.
We love the Lions. So I particularly love the Lions now, as we will begin working together very, very soon. And I am very excited, my friend. And I'm mostly excited on this episode because this is research for me. This is me learning about Lindenwood University. And so I want to start just broad strokes. Tell me about Lindenwood University. What do you do and how do you do it? We'll go from there.
Yeah, so thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me once again here, and Lisa. So the Lindenwood was founded in 1827, and it's a liberal arts university. So a lot of legacy, a lot of great things. But being liberal arts, we really do pride ourselves on our education and the experience that we give for future teachers, for the sciences, for the health sciences in particular. We've got a lot of great things happening here that aren't even happening, in our region at other universities that are very, very strong. And our business is very, very strong. Our MBA, our online MBA, is one of the top ranked in the country and certainly in Missouri. And so we certainly have a lot to offer our students. And so although liberal arts, and you look at preparing students for a variety of careers, we've actually honed in several different areas that over the next 4, 5, 6 years, we're going to really focus on even more and look at some exciting things that are in our horizon here.
What makes Lindenwood and you really interesting is your background, and you come from tech, right? Is that fair to say? You come from
tech?
Absolutely.
IBM.
Yeah.
Yep.
IBM. You come from IBM. 33 years at IBM. Recently, before Lindenwood, working for a company in the Gulf region, again, a technology company. It's obvious to me that higher ed would be your next stop, right? I mean, obviously you go from technology after 33 years, and everybody who does that goes right into higher education. How does that happen, John? Because in particular, I have to ask it this way. Most institutions and most boards are very reluctant to bring in somebody that, let's just call it risky. Anybody who is not a higher ed professional, who has 40 years of, higher ed bred and born experience, is a risk for institutions. How does this happen for you? First of all, how do you end up in higher ed? And why did Lindenwood open its eyes to the possibility of a different kind of leader?
Well, I think a couple of things here. When IBM asked my wife and I to go to South Africa, we ran 2 divisions. We ran strategic outsourcing and GTS, and we ran our break fix business. And so I had 2 divisions for all of South Africa. So we agreed, and it's a 3-year, it was a 2-year opportunity for us. when we were there for about 8 months, we decided then at that time I was with IBM about 32 years, and it was what's life after IBM? What does that career look like? And I had already been affiliated with higher ed for about 13, 14 years. I was, before going to South Africa, taught at one university, leadership and international business, so a couple of courses there. I taught a master's level course at another university, and then I was on the board of trustees of another university. So my heart, my wife and I, our heart has been with youth, and so it was nothing new. And so, taking a step back in South Africa, it was life after IBM would be in higher education. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was I wanted to be obviously in a leadership role where I could take the business acumen and my passion for students and education and mix them together. So I decided at that point in South Africa to apply at Johns Hopkins, and was accepted and started on my doctorate. And so that was just a great experience. But also, I decided that coming back to the States after being in South Africa, what are some of the other options that I would have? I still wanted to be in technology, wasn't ready for higher ed quite yet. But I did interview at a university before I took the GBM role in Dubai. GBM was an IBM premier partner in the Middle East. And I did accept that role. So I covered, Bahrain and Oman and Abu Dhabi, in addition to Dubai, Kuwait, Qatar. And so great opportunity there. But while I was there, I got a call from a executive search firm about a presidency role. And I had a relationship with this agency. And so when they called at another university, I was a little hesitant because I wasn't quite ready to leave the Middle East, nor was I thinking I would get into higher ed that quickly. But as it turned out, I didn't interview, but Lindenwood came available at that point in time. And although I had a great interview at another university, what they were looking for here was this non-traditional candidate to come in here and really more business oriented. And I think, like most institutions, there were some struggles here and there with enrollment and that tuition. And so I think they wanted to just take a different track. But the write-up it was a perfect match for me and exactly what I was looking for. And so I decided to apply for this role. The other role was outstanding, but this is really where we wanted to be. And certainly being in the Midwest was a plus, given that our family's here. So we applied, everything went great. And so started July 1st, 2019, very excited. But I think the board of directors was really looking, they were future oriented. And my goal coming in here was, let's take that technology piece and how do we marry the technology in with the education and really be, again, very forward thinking. And now we're like most universities, there's things that we're fixing and getting better, but at the same time, like we're running a POC in January, we're using AI, and I want to take advantage of what we can do there. And with that Google engine. So I think there's some great things that we can do here. There's some other things with our strategic plan that we're going to do that are non-traditional for higher education, but that's really going to diversify our revenue streams, which I think is going to be some great things for us going forward.
The business talk. I love it. I love the business piece of higher ed. Lisa, bring you in now to ask John some questions, because I know you have some.
Well, there's so much to peel back there, Dr. Porter.
You're shocking.
Yes. So some of those things are so intriguing, and Joe and I have been working together for, I guess, almost a year. And he knows that on my bucket list is actually effectively to follow in your footsteps and do exactly what you've done. Mm-hmm. So that pull into education, where do you think that started from?
The pull for me into education?
Right.
Well, first off, my alma mater, I love my alma mater and was on the alumni board there. And so always maintaining that student focus. My wife and I also ran a ministry for 32 years. It was 6th grade through 12th grade. It was a competitive kind of thing. And so we were with youth, for, prior to going to South Africa, for, like I said, for 33 straight years. So I think the passion's always been there. And I will tell you that, one of the universities that is in the Midwest, I think their prior president was a former IBMer. So I didn't start the mold. I think there's several IBMers that has a passion for higher education and felt their leadership and experience in technology would really equate well in that environment. So that gave me opportunity to think about that. And that's what really set me on the road to thinking that higher ed would be a great place for me and something that I could learn some things from, and also probably hopefully contribute to.
Well, obviously you're doing that. And Joe, if I could steal one more question and then I'll kick it back over to you. So on an uber personal front, Dr. Porter, you have referred to the partnership with your wife now twice. So you went overseas and worked with her, but then also did the K through 6 program with her as well. So tell us about that, because that's a little bit of a unicorn.
Yeah, actually, I shouldn't say K through 6, it's 6 through 12. But the 6 through 12 was a thing that we did together that was really working with youth. It was memorizing scripture, and it was being able to regurgitate that scripture. It was intense. It was 3 hours every Saturday of practice. And it was competing and traveling across the country. And there's about 700 of these teams, and top 40 teams make it to what they call national finals. And then the top 40, you have your national champions. And so every year is a new book in the New Testament. You memorize it, you compete over it. And so it was a great discipleship, but discipline for youth. And we built great relationships with not only the students, but also with parents, and had great impacts on their lives. And so my wife and I coordinated and coached and loved it. And it was tough going to South Africa, giving that up for so long, but it just kept us. I think we even have today several students. In fact, a student that's here at Lindenwood, where she was one of our former, what we call quizzers. And so just some great relationships and opportunity to really speak into folks, in the students' lives, and really help prepare them for that next iteration of life. And I think the quiz helped do that.
Amazing.
Well, I want to ask now about your, I'm going to get your thoughts on your technology. Okay. So you talked about bringing your technology, your knowledge of business into higher education. Depending on who you talk to, sometimes that fits, sometimes it doesn't. It's even to the language, right? It's literally the language. There could be, and I've come across many people in my time, because it's funny because I mentioned this to you before, my dissertation was on student consumerism, and literally in my surveys of faculty and administrators, there was just a big contingent that just said, no, students are not consumers. And so the language of business, it's variable on whether somebody accepts it in higher ed or not. What have been the greatest successes of bringing technology into higher ed, and where has it made the most sense? Where you've just gone, wow, yeah, look at that difference it made, and where have you seen some barriers?
Well, I think, where technology really fits. Think about digitization, right? So, there is no sector or industry that is, in my opinion, that can split itself off and say, you know what, that's not something for me, because I don't care whether you're in accounting, payable, receivables, whether you're looking at marketing materials, but the digitization piece is critical for all. So you think about bringing that. You think about, I talked a little bit about artificial intelligence. Think about enrollment management, and think about whether or not you can slice and dice and be really data driven and utilize trends. You think about IBM has Watson, Google has their AI engine, but you think about being able to pull all the thousands of data sets in, and no one human being is going to be able to sift through that and really think about what are the trends, what are you learning from this? And AI does that. And so you think about, what I ask my team is, can you tell me, which zip code brings me the most students? That's a pretty basic question. Every institution would be able to come up with that answer. But then can we dig a little bit deeper? So in that zip code, can you tell me what are the demographics of those families? Can you tell me whether it's 2.2 kids per household, the average income is 100,000, and the average debt is $15,000, and then what beyond that, what are some things that I can draw from that I can bring in and say, listen, I can attract more of those students here. I can stop wasting money by spreading it out so far and be more targeted in my marketing efforts, right? So if you marry that together, so I think. Other things that we've done here as we've laid out our strategic plan is most universities don't have a PMO, project management office. And so you think about in the IT world, what we did was we took over data centers for institutions, big institutions worldwide. And when you do that, you have a PMO and you have project managers. And when you transition and transform to our, when I was with IBM, our processes, our tools, you need to have a PMO office so that these project managers are doing all these these project type of activities so that you're making progress. And so, there's SLAs, service level agreements, in those contracts where you say, your uptime for your data center is not, the 5 nines. Well, how do you equate that to a university? Well, we've got these 6 strategic initiatives, and we want to make sure that we've got dashboards built, that we're doing what we say we're going to do. I tell my team, bullets on paper mean nothing. It's all in the execution. And unless we see results and can see the metrics, we don't know whether we're making progress. So putting a PMO, we have a PMO office in here. We have a project manager that is driving all of the action items in a software package called Cascade. So again, using technology in a way that we can make sure we have progress. We've also made that technology available to our board of trustees, so they now can sign in and they can go to our dashboard and they can look to see whether we're red, yellow, green in each of our 6 initiatives.
Do they go in and check it out?
Yeah. So it's they just got IDs yesterday, as a matter of fact. So
that's awesome.
So there's some great things to do in order to take advantage of the technologies.
So on that, and Lisa, I'll pass it to you in a second, but I want to ask, as you go through this and you talk about SLAs is a great example, because typically in higher ed, you don't build in SLAs. We all need to service each other departmentally, but no one goes, hey, look, if you put in or maybe IT is the only department within higher ed that might have an SLA, but marketing needs to have it, and student service needs to have it to students, and to, so, and you think about that, and then there's the Q2 philosophy at Lindenwood. Yep. What's the Q2 philosophy, and why is it so important?
So Q2 is, we ask ourselves, not only our employees, but to our students, what do you need and how can I help? It's those 2 questions. What do you need and how can I help? Wow. And so when you take that perspective, it is a service-oriented expectation. So go back to, SLAs, the service level that are in the corporate world, there's penalties assigned to that. So it's a big financial penalty if you don't have the 5 nines in the upkeep. But you also have what's SLOs, service level objectives. And so those are non-financial penalties, but those are levels that you agree to as a team. And I would say, what we want to do at Lindenwood, whether it be on the marketing side, the enrollment side, whether it be on the financial aid, whatever that is, we just had a meeting this morning with my team on, look at our financial aid packages. How many financial aid packages have we gotten out this year as opposed to last year at this time? Now, everybody does this, so this isn't rocket science kinds of things. But just in terms of meeting some SLOs and how do we move up that timeline so that we get to these students sooner, so they can make a decision sooner to come to Lindenwood rather than waiting for 5 months.
It's like you're teasing me out here, John. It's like you're teasing me so I can jump in and say, oh, I've got 100 ideas on how to do that. Go ahead.
No, exactly. But back to the Q2, I mean, that is just the culture that we have here now. And so you said this earlier, our students, consumers, of course they are. They're our customers. Right. And so we want to make sure that we've got greatly satisfied customers. And how do you do that? It's that Q2 environment. It's asking the students, what do you need? How can I help? And how do we get them to that next level and get them, successful? Obviously, graduating is a great thing for them, getting that higher level of graduation rates. And so there's a lot of things that we can do, but I think the Q2 sets the tone for how we want to drive and operate as an institution.
I love that. And speaking of somebody who knows how to satisfy their customers, Lisa Honaker, come on in.
So both of the concepts that you just talked about, service level agreements, service uptime, all of that, as well as Q2. So we have the 5 whys over here at FedEx. So as you're sitting here in the landscape of your peers, you are definitely talking like a titan of business. You are probably the redheaded stepchild among your peers in how you are approaching the business of education. What would be one piece of advice you would give your peers in working through that transformation?
Well, I'll just say this, I don't see myself ahead of my peers. I would never suggest that I came in here and I have all the answers. I'm learning. So the first thing I did when I came into this position, I met with 7 presidents of universities. And I just said, hey, listen, I'm the new kid on the block here. I've got a lot to learn. And what are some of those things that I should be watching out for? So I did that. I had my, what everybody calls their listening tour. And that was really fantastic. And even going back to Johns Hopkins, when I went there for my comps, I met with their president. And so that was really great. I think I think the thing about me, if there's anything, I was told when I came to higher ed, hey, just be careful, just know that it's going to be slow. It's going to be very, very slow. And I would just say it doesn't have to be slow. We can make decisions and we can execute. And if there's anything that I would say is I'm not going to accept that paradigm that everything moves at a snail's pace. We're just not going to do that here. We're going to make decisions. We're going to make informed decisions. And then we're going to go execute. And here's my perspective. There's nothing outside of the box that we can't consider as a team here. And now we're not going to be all over the place. We're going to really be focused. But I encourage my team, challenge me, rightfully and professionally. But just because I've laid something down doesn't mean we can't have discussion around it. And so I try to keep an open mind, try to be agile. And that's one of the things I really want my team to be, and that is flexible. We'll consider things. And once we agree, we're going to go execute on it. But I would just say there's plenty of opportunity to brainstorm, to ideate, to do your design thinking kinds of workshops. And one of the things when I brought in my VP of Strategy and Innovation, I said, I want every operating unit, I call them operating unit here in verticals, to be in this design thinking mode where, you gotta go conquer or solution something, get the team in, do a design thinking workshop. I want to do 3, 4, 5 of these a year. Most institutions are doing them once every 3 or 5 years. We should just be used to ideating and getting into that design thinking mode. And at IBM, I was fortunate in New York. We did a lot of design thinking workshops, did them in Abu Dhabi. I did them in South Africa, and they're very, very fruitful, but it's not a once, every 3 or 5 years. It's every, when you got to go solve something, do a design thinking, ideate on it, put together your plans, go execute.
Oh yeah.
The EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Hey, everybody, head over to www.edupexperience.com, our website, where you're going to find all of the episodes that we've recorded, categorized so that you can ensure that you're spending your time listening to the podcasts that are most important to you. You're going to see the reviews of our podcasts, the shows in our network, our partners, and a section on starter episodes. If you're new to the EdUp Experience, listen to those starter episodes and get a feel for how the podcast has evolved over time and our impact in the world. www.edupexperience.com.
All right, Joe, I'll give it back to you.
I love it. That's what, that's why I'm so excited to join the Lindenwood team. That's the way I think, we said it before we recorded, let's chop it up, let's break it, and let's rebuild it in a better way. And if you always put the student first, you have to iterate and you have to ideate, because the student is moving faster than the institution. And when you realize that, it puts you in a position, and you can either sit and stand still and stick your feet in the mud and go, we're not going to change. But that student is changing rapidly. The amount of noise around the student, the way they access information, the 24/7 expectation of service. And this is why I always say it. This is, John, how I always put it. If you didn't buy your wife or your husband a gift for Christmas, you could go on Amazon right now and you can get it tonight or tomorrow maybe. So why is the expectation any less for higher education and the way we service a student when that's what their expectation is? That excitement, how do you keep that excitement? Because higher ed, for all of it, and I say this as somebody who's worked in higher for 20 years, it's easy to dull the senses in higher education. Yeah. It's easy to, accreditation, as wonderful as accreditation is to keep your standards and quality and outcome, it can become a fear piece where people, oh, no, we can't do that. Accreditation says that. And you forget that it's interpretation and it's data and challenge and producing results to that standard. So it's easy to dull the senses. How do you ensure your team stays, and me joining your team, how do you stay up to date and excited about the future?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think first off, you got to create the energy. And, one of the things is I get excited when I talk about the university, when I'm in front of folks, whether it be potential donors, whether it be students, whether it be parents, any of our constituents. And so I think always having that kind of energy, I think other people see that and they absorb that and they like that. I think one of the things that we're trying to do here too is I've asked the team or we've talked about as a team is every experience a student has, I want to be a great experience. Student is in line for financial aid or they're in the line, they get up there and the person is, oh, that's the wrong, you're at the wrong place. You need to go to, 2 blocks down to the other. No. What we want to do is come out from behind the desk and take the student over there. and let that student say, wow, that was a great experience. Or we were on the phone with the student, how is that a great experience for the student? So we're trying to create that kind of culture. The other thing is, what are the things that we're doing that I think excite people? I mean, I'll say this, doesn't mean we're where we want to be quite yet. I put a mergers and acquisition team together about 18 months ago. So we have an M&A team. I don't know how many universities have an M&A team, but we're not trying to foster ourselves after other universities. But I want to be on the lookout for something that's going to be great for Lindenwood University, and is going to accelerate maybe some of the programming, is going to accelerate maybe some of our numbers and enrollment. But I tell you that because, and this team has probably looked at 17, 18, universities, and it's been exciting for them. And I think when you talk about this, people are like, we really want to be forward thinking. So this isn't about creating a status quo environment. I had one of my VPs tell me 2 weeks ago, man, I'm just really excited about where we're at, what we're doing, and how we're moving forward. And again, it's not about me, it's about the team that we brought in some really, really great talent that really have a passion for seeing the success of the university. It's not about my vision, it's about our vision, it's about teaming. And I think when you have that kind of energy on an ongoing basis, again, it's not false energy. Listen, we're doing the heavy lifting too. Our core business, we've got to do better in our core. I call it our core business. So we can have the strategy all we want, but if you don't have a strong core business and get it where you want it in that northern trajectory, both on revenue and enrollment, nothing else matters, right? So I think they're excited that we are making changes that get us in a better position on the core business, but we're excited about our 5-year strategic plan. And we've laid it out. We've laid out the financials, the business case. The board has approved it, and now we're executing on that, and we're seeing results already. So when I first came here, I said, let's really celebrate our successes and let's make it known what our successes are. And by the way, we're going to have some failures, and we all know that. And so we're not afraid to fail. And everybody says that. Fail fast and move forward, right? We were on a call yesterday. We talked about, an investment that we're going to make. It's about $100,000, and we could fail on that. Well, listen, $100,000 in terms of the bigger scheme of things, that's not a lot of money, right? Are we willing to take that risk? Absolutely, we're going to take that risk. But I think it is going to be successful, and we're going to reap much greater reward than what that initial dollar is going to be. So the other thing, I'll just say one more thing, Joe. When I first came here, we looked at the model for higher education. You think about the revenue streams. Most, if you go to the corporate world, they've got hundreds of products and services. They're not predicated on one product. So you think about if students don't show up and actually occupy our dorm rooms, that's a big part of our revenue. And so we decided here that we would go to a 40-40-20 model, 40% on ground, 40% online, and 20% auxiliary revenues. And so we have formed, for that 20% auxiliary revenue, Lindenwood, which is a for-profit entity. Well, we will eventually, when we get it really rolling, offer level 1, level 2 support for technology products. So I think, again, it goes back to your question, that excites people. I mean, I brought in a GM from IBM. She was with IBM for 32 years, and she is now the GM for Lindenwood. And so we're looking at opportunities for either back-end support or that IT level 1, level 2 support. And again, this is going to take some time, but it's exciting to be a part of that. So I think that's what you'll find when you talk to folks here.
Yeah, Lisa, I want to bring you in because you put up a shock face emoji when John was talking about an M&A team. Why did you do that?
That is just so different than any of my experience with our higher education clients and even people that I'm friends with in our neighborhood. And I live here in the Research Triangle Park, so I'm surrounded by 3 amazing institutions. And they don't talk like that. I mean, my next door neighbor is high up at Duke, and those concepts just don't come out. So it's super exciting to hear you talk about that. And it just made me think, when you talk about your 5-year strategic plan, you talk about how you are going to get to that through agility and design thinking, all those different sorts of things. What is one element of that you are most excited for, that you think is going to be most transformational?
Well, first off, Joe joins us on January 11th, and Lindenwood Global is going to be extremely exciting for us. I mean, we will be pumping in quite a bit of investment for that to really go drive. We have online today, but this is really going to take us to a new level. And I think we have laid out a long-term financial plan over the 5 years We've got 4 outcomes for our 5-year strategic plan, and one of them is growing our revenues about 65%. So that's going to be very transformative for the university, and that's going to allow us. I mean, we've all heard it. Without margin, there's no mission. We have to have margin so that we can reinvest back into the institution. So we have the health sciences, as part of, when we did our design thinking for our 5-year strategic plan, we came up with 245 innovative ideas. Those 245 were honed down to 6. And out of those 6, again, Lindengage, 3 will drive revenue and 3 won't drive revenue. But the 3 that drive revenue, like our Lindenwood Global, or like some of the things that we're going to do in the health sciences down the road, are really going to differentiate us from other universities, even in the region here, which we're very proud of. So, but anyways, I think the Lindenwood Global is going to be very transformative for us. Lindengage at some point will also and drive a different revenue stream for us, but we're excited about all 6 of them.
This is coming up to the back half of this episode. We've got about 10 more minutes or so, but John, I've got to get in this very important question. It might be the most important question of the episode here. It's an opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about you. So we ask every guest this same question. Are you ready? I got to hit my music. Are you ready?
Go for it.
For no money, I always say. John, what's your entrance music? What's that song, your favorite song that plays at commencement, or the one that should play when you walk on stage, walk into a meeting, walk into Lindenwood, walk into your house? What's your entrance music, that song that hits you the top of your head?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I'm a 70s kind of guy, right? So I guess I just gave away my age.
Let it fly. Just got to let it fly. Whatever comes out.
Let it fly. Let it fly is actually a song. I don't know that I could come up with something that's going to be that would be my song. I'd have to think on that. I don't have anything right off the top here, but
all right.
When I work out in the mornings, I'm a 70s kind of guy. I love the 70s music, and so I'd have to think on that a little bit.
I think genre works. Lisa, you think genre is good? So we'll go rock, we go country. Where are we at?
Yeah, I would say, that's rock for me would be the 70s piece. I think that's one of the best decades of music that we've ever had. So you think about, the Beatles and you think about some of the, Styx and Boston and all those kinds of songs and groups. I think, a lot of great songs came from that era.
Right.
Agreed. I agree with that. Lisa, what do you think?
Well,
I mean, you're a Motley Crue and 80s rock hair fan.
So that is true. That is true, Dr. Porter. In fact, my first show was Def Leppard in St. Louis.
Wow, that's incredible. There you go, Def Leppard. Yeah. I think about it, the Doobie Brothers, Chicago. I mean, there's so many great groups out there.
No doubt.
So let's transition just a little bit. I want to talk about, or you want to go, Lisa, because I kind of upstaged you and took over.
You hijacked me.
I hijacked you. Have you another question?
I do, if you don't mind, Joe. And then I will hand it right back to you.
The show is yours, Lisa. Are you kidding me?
No, it's yours. So Dr. Porter, the first thing that you said that was going to be transformational is the initiative that now places Joe within your organization. So I'm sure through the interview process, you all talked about the challenges that he would be facing, and obviously he would respond with how he would tackle those. But what is his number one challenge? I did some research in preparation for this, and there's a great article, Joe, that I will send you from Forbes, and it talks about all these different aspects of online education and ranks different programs based on specialty. But Dr. Porter, what was one of the big challenges or asks that you had of Joe taking on this initiative?
Well, I think of anybody. I mean, it's a if you look at the online, it's a very, very, very competitive market. I think the differentiator, though, is how you market the product. And so I won't get into all the details of what that looks like, but if we're not positioned correctly from a social media perspective, and certainly with the analytics, and really do deep dives, we're not going to be successful there. And so I think one of the things that I like about Joe is the fact that we're going to take an analytical view. Again, I won't give away everything here, but I think those metrics and understanding those metrics and what really drives students to come to Lindenwood from an online perspective are going to be critical for our success moving forward. And the sooner we can do it and understand it and get our arms around it, the better we're going to be. I think, and then obviously building an infrastructure that's going to support the volumes that we have built into our business model. And so it's aggressive. And one of the questions I asked Joe was, gave him numbers, talked about how aggressive we're going to be. And Joe didn't flinch about that because I think knowing what it takes, having built something like that before and understanding the metrics and marketing behind it is critical for this role. That's why Joe's in it.
What a great answer. And knowing Joe for the last however long I've known him, he doesn't flinch, and he does bring a very different way looking at education, higher education. In fact, we've talked about it on our joint podcast sessions together about that very aspect. So Joe, I'll kick it back to you.
Yeah, and thank you, Lisa, for the kind words, and John too. It is true, everything you said, John, and it is very competitive, and so much of how to win in online education now is differentiation. It's the brand, it's speed, it's a collaboration and pulling on the resources, and that's what I'm excited about at Lindenwood. Is that it's the frame of mind. It's confidence. It's knowing that you can get there as much as anything else. And so I'm excited. Really, time can't pass fast enough as we're recording this episode. There's still a little bit to go before I begin, but it's on my mind every minute of the day. So let's talk quickly about, and I ask most guests this, the value of higher education, especially as somebody who comes from what we would call the world of work. Both of you actually are in the world of work or come from it, which is not higher ed. You hired people at a ground and an executive level. You could have hired people with degrees, without degrees, low level, high level. There is a question of the value of a higher education, of a degree in the United States, the anti-intellectualism movement, as it were, where you can do this and go off and take this online course and go get a job making $120K. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but there's a lot of noise around students, and many of them are being told that you don't necessarily need higher ed. I tend to disagree. I think higher education and degree has got so many benefits beyond the economic one, but right now in a time that's very challenging financially, that's what students are thinking about, is the economics. Where do you sit on that, John?
Two words: discipline, knowledge. So I think a student coming to our university, any university, talk about discipline. So there's one thing to have discipline in high school. It's a different thing to have discipline in the college ranks. The expectations are much higher. The rigor is much harder. I think this is an opportunity for hopefully your 4 years here where you're going to learn what discipline is all about, how to study, when to study, how much to study, and people have different intellectual levels. And so some require more, less. But I think that discipline is second to none. The other piece on it is the knowledge. Hopefully you walk away. So you think about, even though we're a liberal arts. Well, we've got the life sciences, you got biology, you got ecology, you got the neurosciences, you got logic, mathematics, philosophy, the physical sciences like physics, chemistry, geography. So you're gonna be a well-rounded person. What better to take the discipline that you've achieved and the knowledge that you've learned to those employers out there, right? So I think there's always going to be a model for higher education. Now, second to that, you look at one of our 6 initiatives is the micro-credentials. There is a market out there that I call this is just my own thinking. It's a hit and run. I want to learn something quickly, and then I want to go and get my job, whether it's from a vocational perspective. Think about skills gaps in corporations. Some have degrees, some don't have degrees, but the skills gap may still be there. Or how does a micro credential fill that gap? How can I get something and get, employer comes to us and say, listen, here's where we'll give you the IP. We need you to build the infrastructure to give this to our employees. Micro credentials are going to do that for us. So we're not trying to just look at the 4-year degree, but we also want that continuing education, but those credentials that are stackable, that that, we just signed 2 great agreements with 2 companies that is going to really catapult us to that next level. And these are certifications, 1-year certification. And once these folks are certified, that's going to give them greater employment opportunities. It's not a 4-year degree. However, they can probably plug that in and earn a 4-year degree based on credit hours they'll receive for the certification. So I think we're looking at it both ways, but it all boils down to discipline and knowledge, in my opinion.
Lisa, what do you think about that? Because you're living it now still.
Oh, no doubt. But again, I just think that this whole conversation, it's interesting. And Joe, I don't know when you're going to be airing this, but the culmination of our podcasts throughout calendar year 2021 have been on or around all these topics. And now it's just like all those were the appetizer, and now we're just diving into the meal. And I just think it's an incredibly exciting time for Lindenwood University, whatever chapter we're in with COVID and how that evolves. I think that's an accelerator to your vision, Dr. Porter. And then bringing Joe in, it's just gas on this fire. I just think everything that you're talking about is incredibly exciting. And coming from St. Louis, it's exciting to have that fireball of an engine in play as well.
Yep. No, I agree.
Can't, no offense to my California brethren out here, but I'm very excited to join the Midwest, as it were, after I filled my, John, and you don't know this right now, but I did drive my car to Colorado where my family's spending the holidays. Then I'll fly back and then fly back to Denver and then drive my car the rest of the way. It was like $87 to fill my gas tank. And then I stopped in Utah and it was 53. And I went, wow, let me add that up. It's insane. So, Lisa, any more questions before I dive into the final 2 for John?
No, straight over to you.
All right, John, the last 2 questions we ask every single guest. Number 1, what did we miss about Lindenwood University? Anything you want to say, plug, events, initiatives? Really, it's an open mic for you to say anything you'd like. And secondarily to that, what do you see as the future of higher education?
Well, I see missing at Lindenwood. First off, we say this: when we get somebody on this campus, they're sold. You come here and you think about our football stadium, built by the St. Louis Cardinals. We didn't even have a football team, but if you come there and look at our stadium, you're like, wow, this is really something. I think we've got. I remind my team all the time: don't take for granted what we have here. We just have a phenomenal campus, and when you walk on this campus, you're just wowed by the resources that we have.
Directly vouch for that.
Yeah, it is. It really, and my wife and I flew in here from Dubai, and we pulled in front of the Jay Scheidegger Performing Arts Center, and we were like just taken back by the resources. So we don't want to take that for granted. It's something that's special that we have here. When students come on, probably 80% of the time we sell them. So that's one thing. And the future in higher education, I think the future is, it's got to have the aperture has got to open for higher education. We've got to be open to new ways of thinking and doing things. We've got to integrate the technologies as best we can. We can't be the laggards. We can't be afraid to make moves. We can't be afraid to fail. And I know people say that, but I really mean it. Just going back to my illustration of the 100K yesterday, nobody likes to lose money, but listen, if you don't try, you don't know where the success is going to come from. So I just think we've just got to be more in tune with, you see the speed at which corporations move. There really is no reason why we can't move at that same speed. And again, you got to have the critical thinking skills. It's got to be pragmatic. And bottom line, though, it's got to be student centric. And so, we want to be that next great learner centric university in the Midwest. It's all going to be centered around the students. So we did a lot of work on Generation Z, these millennials coming up, how much time they spend on the internet. These guys want to, 65 or 70% of them want to own a business at some point in time. How are we preparing that next generation of students for college life? And are we really doing things that is that kind of concierge kind of mentality for our students? If we don't do it that way, if we're in this for ourselves and we just want to kind of go through the rhythm, then we're probably not going to be as successful as we can be. So we've always got to keep our ear to the ground. Everybody knows this, but I really do mean it. And when you say you're going to do something, you got to execute. You got to go do it and not just talk about it.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's all been said on this episode with first of all, my amazing guest co-host today, Lisa Honaker, Managing Director of Sales for the Eastern U.S. at FedEx Office. Lisa, it's always, and I mean always, an honor to have you on co-hosting with me.
Thank you, Joe.
And my guest today, he said a lot of things that make you want to scream out with excitement, or at least me. That's why I'm moving to St. Louis to work for him. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is again, Dr. John Porter. He's president of Lindenwood University. John, thank you for coming on the EdUp Experience today.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd